What actually makes a woman become emotionally attached to a man? Is it physical attraction? Chemistry? How often you text her? How much attention you give her? Or is emotional attachment built through something much deeper? Because here's the thing. You can be incredibly attracted to someone and still not feel emotionally connected to them. You can have amazing chemistry with someone and still never feel safe enough to open up. And you can talk to someone every single day without ever becoming genuinely attached. Emotional attachment isn't created by one perfect text message or some secret trick. It develops over time, through experiences, through trust, through the way someone makes you feel when you're around them. And if you've ever wondered why some people become deeply attached to one another while others seem to drift apart, there are a few important things that can explain the difference. So today, let's talk about what actually makes a woman emotionally attached to a man. 1. She feels emotionally safe around him. One of the biggest foundations of emotional attachment is feeling safe. And emotional safety doesn't mean that everything is always comfortable. It means she feels like she can be herself around you without constantly worrying about being judged, rejected, mocked, or punished for having feelings. Think about what happens when someone doesn't feel safe. They become guarded. They stop sharing. They carefully choose their words. They hide things. They avoid vulnerability. And eventually, emotional distance begins to grow. But when someone feels safe with you, something different happens. They start letting you see the parts of themselves that they don't show everyone. They tell you about their insecurities, their fears, their embarrassing stories, their dreams, their frustrations, things from their past, and sometimes, even the things they're afraid you'll think differently of them for. That vulnerability creates intimacy, because emotional attachment isn't simply about how much time you spend together. It's about how much of yourself you're willing to reveal. If she feels like she can take off the emotional armor around you, you're no longer just someone she's attracted to. You're becoming someone she feels emotionally connected to, and that can be incredibly powerful. 2. She feels understood. There's a difference between someone listening to you and someone actually understanding you. Anyone can hear your words, but emotional connection happens when someone starts understanding the person behind them. Maybe she tells you she's stressed. Instead of immediately trying to fix the problem, you understand that sometimes she simply wants someone to listen. Maybe she becomes quiet. Instead of assuming she's angry, you recognize that something is bothering her. Maybe she gets excited about something that seems insignificant to everyone else, but you remember why it matters to her. Those moments tell someone, "You see me," and feeling seen is one of the most powerful experiences in a relationship. Because most people go through life feeling partially misunderstood. We hide certain parts of ourselves. We simplify our emotions. We pretend we're okay. So when someone comes along who seems to genuinely understand us, we notice. And eventually, we may start associating that person with emotional comfort. That's how attachment begins to deepen. Not because you perfectly understand everything she thinks, but because she feels like you're genuinely trying to. 3. She can depend on you without losing her independence. There's a major difference between being dependable and being controlling. A woman becoming emotionally attached to a man doesn't mean she should suddenly depend on him for everything. Healthy attachment leaves room for independence. But knowing that someone will show up when it matters can create enormous emotional security. If you say you'll call, you call. If you make a promise, you try to keep it. If she needs support, you're there. If something goes wrong, she knows she can trust you to handle it with maturity. None of this requires grand romantic gestures. In fact, emotional attachment is often built through incredibly ordinary moments. You remember something she told you weeks ago. You check in before an important event. You follow through on something you said you'd do. You notice when she's having a difficult day. Those moments might seem small, but they're repeated evidence. Evidence that says, "I can trust this person." And trust is one of the strongest foundations of emotional attachment. 4. She can be vulnerable without feeling ashamed. Vulnerability is risky. When you tell someone something deeply personal, You're giving them information they could potentially use against you. That's why people don't immediately reveal everything about themselves. They test the waters. They share something small. They see how you respond. Then they decide whether it's safe to share something deeper. If she opens up to you and you respond with compassion instead of ridicule, she remembers that. If she tells you something she's insecure about and you don't make her feel embarrassed, she remembers that too. Over time, those experiences create emotional trust. And eventually, she may begin telling you things she doesn't tell anyone else. That's a major sign of emotional closeness. Because the more vulnerable someone feels safe being with you, the more emotionally connected the relationship can become. But there's an important warning here. Never use someone's vulnerability as a weapon. If someone trusts you enough to reveal their insecurities, that trust should be protected. The fastest way to destroy emotional attachment is to make someone regret opening up. 5. She associates you with positive emotions. Think about the people you're closest to. You probably don't remember every conversation you've had with them. You remember how you felt around them. Maybe you felt relaxed. Maybe you laughed constantly. Maybe you felt understood. Maybe you felt excited about life. Emotional attachment is partly about association. When someone repeatedly experiences positive emotions around you, their brain begins connecting those feelings with your presence. That doesn't mean you have to entertain her constantly. You don't need to become a comedian. You don't need to provide nonstop excitement. It can be much simpler. Laughing together, going on adventures, having meaningful conversations, comforting each other after difficult days, sharing little inside jokes, creating experiences that belong to the two of you. Those experiences become memories. And eventually, you aren't just a person she knows. You're connected to an entire collection of emotions and experiences. That's one reason relationships can be so difficult to let go of. You're not simply missing a person. You're missing a world of experiences that existed with them. 6. She feels appreciated, not just desired. There's a huge difference between being wanted and being valued. Physical attraction can tell someone, "I'm attracted to you," but appreciation communicates something deeper. I notice who you are. Maybe you appreciate her sense of humor, her ambition, the way she treats people, her creativity, her kindness, the way she handles difficult situations, the little things she does that other people overlook. When someone feels appreciated for who they actually are, rather than simply what they provide, emotional attachment can grow. Because there's a difference between feeling like someone's girlfriend and feeling like someone is genuinely fascinated by you. The healthiest relationships aren't built on constant validation. They're built on sincere appreciation. And that's something people tend to remember. 7. She sees consistency. One of the fastest ways to create emotional uncertainty is inconsistency. One day you're incredibly affectionate. The next day you disappear. One week you're talking about the future. The next week you act completely uninterested. That unpredictability can create anxiety. And while anxiety can sometimes be mistaken for intense attraction, it isn't the same thing as healthy emotional attachment. Healthy attachment tends to grow through consistency. She knows what version of you she's going to get. You don't have to be perfect. You're allowed to have bad days. You're allowed to be busy. You're allowed to need space. But your underlying behavior is stable. If you care, you show that consistently. If something changes, you communicate. If you're upset, you talk about it. If you need space, you explain why. Consistency gives someone something incredibly valuable: certainty. And certainty creates the foundation where vulnerability can actually thrive. 8. She gets to see the real you. There's something attractive about confidence, but there's something even more powerful about authenticity. If you're constantly performing a version of yourself because you're afraid she'll lose interest, eventually the relationship becomes exhausting. You're not actually allowing her to connect with you. You're allowing her to connect with a character. An emotional attachment becomes much harder when someone doesn't know who you really are. Let her see your humor, your weird interests, your imperfections, your insecurities, your ambitions, your serious side, your goofy side, your values, your boundaries. You don't need to reveal everything immediately, but over time, genuine intimacy requires authenticity. Because emotional attachment isn't created when someone falls for the perfect version of you. It's created when they know the real version of you and still want to be close to you. 9. She feels like the relationship is mutual. One-sided relationships are exhausting. If you're always initiating conversations, always planning dates, always checking in, always expressing affection, eventually you start wondering whether the other person actually wants to be there. Emotional attachment grows much more naturally when both people are investing. She reaches out. You reach out. She asks about your day. You ask about hers. She remembers things about you. You remember things about her. She makes sacrifices. You make sacrifices. She wants to understand you. You want to understand her. That reciprocity creates a powerful sense of partnership. And partnership is different from simply being attracted to someone. It's the feeling that you're building something together. That feeling can become incredibly difficult to replace. 10. She feels like she can build a life with you. Eventually, emotional attachment can move beyond the present. She starts imagining the future, not necessarily marriage or children immediately. Something much simpler. Maybe another trip together, another holiday, another birthday, another weekend, another year. You slowly become part of the mental picture she has of her future. And that's significant, because once someone becomes integrated into the way you imagine your life, separating from them becomes emotionally complicated. You aren't just losing the person, you're losing the future you imagined with them. This is why emotional attachment can become so powerful. A relationship isn't only about memories. It can also be about expectations, plans, possibilities, the little future moments you assumed would happen. And when someone starts naturally imagining those moments with you, they aren't simply attracted to you anymore. They're emotionally investing in you.